text Chris that he missed.
And he said, those attorneys, he said, I got one of my awards.
You ready?
The Elder Scroll presidency.
Good evening. We welcome you to our city council meeting.
Later, we got a bill in the mail.
I haven't asked anybody. Councilman Hudson, would you lead us in the prayer?
I will.
And Councilman Sigmund, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful we can gather this evening to discuss the items of interest for our city. We're grateful for this wonderful area we have to live in, for the beautiful weather we've been able to enjoy, and for the wonderful friends and neighbors we have. Please bless us this night, Father, that we'll be able to accomplish the business of the city. Please bless those members of our community who are serving to keep us safe, to protect us, that they will be watched over and protected. We say these things, Father, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's go with item number 1, approval of the agenda.
I move to approve, Mayor.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye.
Item 2, announcements. Do you want to handle the announcements, Mike, at this time?
Bearer of good news.
Just a announcement, not all of them. I wanted to introduce our new fleet manager that we hired on, Mike Hubbard.
Good to meet you, Mike.
Welcome, Mike.
And so far is doing an absolutely wonderful job for us,
So he's handling all fleet-related issues.
working on it.
Figuring it all out, huh?
He came to work January 1st, or
So he's not an expert yet?
not yet.
All right.
And fleet includes police
All
vehicles,
city
fire
vehicles,
vehicles,
equipment,
really old graders.
really old graders, lawnmowers.
Really old graders with good tires.
It's funny, I'd say Mike was probably on a day or two before the newspaper article on the CNG, and he sounded so good about how the city had done all that CNG and all of that. He did a fantastic job. But as you know, our fleet's going to go through a transition. It will become its own internal service fund. We've been working toward this for a number of years, and it's still going to take us a while to roll that all out. But this is going to be a great program, and Mike's going to be a fantastic asset.
Thank you. Welcome, Mike.
Good to meet you, Mike.
Okay.
And thank you, Mike. Okay, item number 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Anything to declare tonight, gentlemen?
I wonder if anyone's got a conflict.
Item 4, our consent agenda to approve the minutes of, a consideration to approve the minutes from the city council meetings of 2/12/2013 and 2/13/2013, and the renewal of an alcohol license, consideration to approve the following on-premise license for Pepper's Cantina.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second.
Councilman Turek, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Staley, aye.
Truman, aye.
Any reports from assigned committees?
Not this time.
Okay.
Mayor, I've got one item that the Youth Council has asked me to bring to the council. On May 11th, actually the 10th and 11th, they're going to hold a kind of a leadership retreat that they're going to be hosting down here for other youth councils to come down. And they have asked if the city council would be willing to come and cook breakfast at the Covington home on the morning of the 11th, starting at about 7:30 in the morning, and have breakfast ready to come off the grill about. They figured you'd be practiced because you've done it the week before for Iron Man. And so I said, I'll be happy to go and ask.
Is that Friday morning?
I think it's a Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
Yeah,
I'm in.
on May the 11th.
You're in.
Yeah,
You're all in.
I'm good for that. You bet.
You can be
I'll have
here.
to check with my wife, but
If you can
tentatively-
schedule, I told them that Councilman Staley and myself will be there, and we'd love to have the rest of you join with us. And they're actually bringing youth councils from as far as Richfield.
All to the Covington home?
Well, most of it's going to be up to the community center,
That'd be
but
fun.
they wanted to feed them down at the Covington home.
That'd be great.
What Saturday is that? What day is
That's May the 11th.
11th.
Council Staley, is Border League basketball over by then?
Well, That's a new season. We'll have to just see. We got tournament Saturday.
I'm happy to help on that.
Well, those that can be involved there, we'd love to
What
have
time
you
is
come.
that, Councilman Turris?
7:30. They
7:30?
want, yeah, they'll bring the kids they want the kids to eat about 8 o'clock. So I said, well, I'll see if the
Would
council
you
can be
put
there at
that on my
7:30
calendar?
and start, so the food's coming off by 8. And
Thank you.
so it shouldn't take us too long. I imagine within an hour, we'll have it's just gonna be pancakes and. it's
Probably
kind of
won't be more than 40 kids, are there?
No, I don't think so. They've got Enterprise, Hurricane, Laverican, St. George, Cedar City, Richfield.
So all these
so
cities have, if
youth councils.
they used to not, did they?
Yeah, they just started in the last year or two, thanks to some great examples.
That's right.
So they've doing a great, it's entitled The Leader of Oz, or With Oz, or it's a Wizard of Oz theme that they're using, and kind of a leadership. Our youth are, you know, in the past, we've always we've taken them to Logan, and this year we
Yeah.
decided that we could host something down here and save ourselves a lot of money and probably do a better situation than we had there. So that's what we've decided to do, is kind of see if we can't start a tradition down this way, and instead of taking our kids to Logan. So,
Thank you, Councilman Terry. Anything else?
no, other than we did take our youth to the legislative session, but I'll let them come and report that at our next council
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you. City manager report.
Mayor, I've just looked over some of the.
Thank you. That's-
I should be able to cover this in 50 minutes here. No, I just looking over some of the things, and many of them we've talked about just actually the last couple of days. We've got the Siemens audit. We've done the road projects that are coming up. The only item I will bring up, I think, because I don't think there's any other project issues, you can see that the debris removal is underway. And Mike, I don't know when they're anticipating concluding. You told me that, but I can't remember what the total project duration is.
5 days.
Okay, so they're doing great. It's looking great, too.
Where are they moving the sand debris to? It seems to me that's just a big dirt removal project. Where's that all going?
That's the contractor's responsibility. I think they've got a project they're
Part of where they
probably
filling?
resold it on.
Filling it somewhere?
Yeah, but on the park side is also gonna be a rock wall
Oh, really?
they actually started working on today. So we'll have the armorings up the park side there for a ways.
Okay.
So that's part of the project. And then also replanting the vegetation, the willows.
The willows, yeah.
What about on the weekends when they're not working? Would it be possible to open those lanes back up? That's when it seems to be our traffic gets the heaviest, and we've got one lane clear down, and
Yeah, we probably can request that now, especially because I think they're
That was
done.
my
They're
thought.
pretty much done with the dirt moving on that side.
okay,
of
I
the
just
road.
thought on the weekend where nobody's working, yet we still keep that lane blocked off and that industrial road on-ramp kind of traumatically there. So I thought certainly if
Well-
there's a way we could.
Yeah, we'll request that. I don't think that's an issue.
Thank you, Mike.
And then, Mayor, just an item here, and I'm going to have Denise put it up on the screen. I've had a request by a citizen through their contractor, and this is not without some precedence. We've had these requests before. Has any interest? Built in the Northbridge subdivision area, and they front up on to our landscape areas on the park. So if you look at to the right of that, you'll see that kind of semicircle, half moon. That's our park. That's the debris basin, and you can see that the trail. Well, I'm sorry, that's the trail, and then there's some landscaping we put in, and then there's a strip of city-owned land between the existing landscaping and where you'll see the property line located there. So the request is by two lots, and it's lots 102 and 103. They are asking if the city would be interested in them purchasing the non-native landscaped area that the city owns, if they could purchase as part of an extension of their lots.
The
Again,
non-native or the non-landscaped?
the non-landscape, the non-native landscape,
So they want the native?
yes, that's right, the
They want
native
the native
stuff.
landscape.
Yeah, I said that wrong. We've had this done before on the Green Springs Golf Course too. We've had areas that have bumped up, and in times past, I think the council's actually in some cases gone both directions. They've said, no, we're not interested, or they are interested. And if you do have an interest, then traditionally what we've done is, and this is the responsibility of the landowner, the homeowner, they are responsible for getting appraisals, they are responsible for getting title reports, all of that. and then we go through the process of surplus property in it.
Do you have any idea how big of an area that is?
Yeah, they said that it's about the width, let me just read off his letter, and this is a Mr. Troy Belliston that made this request. He called me on the phone the other day, and I said he'd have to put it in writing and give me what he could for the council to look at. The width of that section would be around 20 feet between the property line and the property line. Denise, pull that off and put a couple of those pictures up too. Between the property line and where the landscape begins, there's about a 20-foot. Okay, so this is hard to see, but there's a yellow string right there on the top picture. Basically, that's the current property line. This is what he's showing us. We'll, of course, verify all this, but this is what he's showing as the current property line. And then you can see the landscaping is where the rock and that is. So, and that's approximately, according to him, 20 feet. So it doesn't encroach in our landscaped area. They're not asking for that. They're asking for everything outside of our landscape area, but that is Washington City's.
I think it makes sense. I don't see it. It seems like the logical
Just a dead space.
thing to do, so.
Yeah, my only concern is let's just make sure that we verify all the property lines. And
Yeah,
everything.
surveys, I didn't mention surveys, all that'll have to be done, and it's their responsibility to do that. We don't incur any costs associated with that. Usually they end up not being terribly, in many cases, what we make them do ends up usually costing almost more than the property does, but if they have a desire to do it, we just say that's their responsibility.
We wouldn't need any right-of-way there to maintain that strip at all in the future, would we?
I don't know. We'll check on that. That's a good question. We'll check to make sure that there's not any right-of-way that needs to be reserved.
Because we want to limit also the fact that they can't be moving the walls out to there. It would seem to me that if we already have,
Yeah,
you know,
is
maybe
there
we don't have,
easements or
like,
anything
walls
through
just
there
sticking
for
out
power
all
or
the time, they'd have to
anything that
stay
would be?
there, that it wouldn't necessarily become part of those subdivisions, because we don't want to.
Is that line, is that a string that they strung? So
Yeah, they
if
just
I-
tapped in the rebar and then strung that
So
line.
if we were to drive, if I was to drive out there, it would still be there probably?
I don't know. Could be.
I'll go look.
But Council Starkey, I'm not as certain as to your comment that whether I would anticipate, yes, they would want to bring their
They may. I
fencing,
guess the question would be for us is whether or not.
especially on
that-
easement.
Yeah, that would be something, whether or not we would want that to start.
And that's actually what happened
Being part
with,
of it.
that's what actually happened with the Green Spring piece, is they brought their wall out to that sold
They already did
piece.
it.
Yeah, it was a.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a forgiveness.
It was an
Yeah.
encroachment
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah, that wasn't a, yeah.
That's right, it was an encroachment
It's
issue.
we have to appreciate that they came to us before they built the wall.
For aesthetic purposes, I just wonder if you got that walkway there and you got all the walls right up next to it, does it kind of feel boxed in at that point?
Yeah, the other
versus
thing I
openness?
wanted to look at, because I think that's a great point, because that's if you remember, one of the things that kind of made our trail plans a little difficult along the canal right-of-way is that you had a trail higher than a backyard, and you start to get people then at that point saying, well, I've lost my privacy. This, of course, is the opposite direction, so there is a slope, and it's not heavy, but there's a slope going the opposite direction, so the lots will actually be, the back lots a little higher. But certainly that's a good question, and also, you know, recognition that people be basically walking past their backyards.
But, you know, if there is not a need for access and there's no easement, I think it makes sense to allow the property owner to take their lot back to that point and improve the property rather than just leave it as, you know, barren ground. So if they're willing to do the legwork and there's no issues that we've kind of,
And I haven't
question
checked,
about.
just so you know, because this came last night, I have not checked with Leisure Services too, and certainly will do that.
Yeah, let's
Right.
check with them before
I
we
guess
finalize anything.
As I'm thinking out loud there, you know, I kind of look at what they've done out in the fields. If you got a block wall up, you landscape on the outside of the wall, so you have this buffer zone. So it seemed like if they wanted to buy it, you'd say if you're gonna put a wall, then you need to do 4 or 5 feet landscaping on the outside, so it's well, you hit right on that walkway, it looks like, so you want something.
the landscape's there. Isn't that the landscape? Yeah, so it would go to that, it would go back to
Correct,
that
that's
dotted
correct.
line, so there
Lines,
would be
you have
that
the rocks
buffer.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My other concern is if we do it with the other two lots, then we have an even smaller piece as you go
Oh, I see what you're saying
north with
there.
those other lots, and so that would be my only other concern with it, is then we're just creating an even smaller island.
Yeah, and if you're a landowner, I just don't know why you pick it up unless you are gonna.
Build the wall,
Block it in,
right.
say,
Sure.
this is my land.
Yeah, I
Otherwise-
think their intention is just to increase their backyards.
Okay, well,
Certainly could look at, I think it's.
Yeah, I
worth
have
looking
no
at, right?
issues.
Yeah, I'm not-
I'm fine looking at it.
Yeah, so you're saying the bill is also-
Okay, then we'll just let him know that, you know, we'll continue to do a due diligence on this, but the council's given us the go-ahead to at least continue to move forward on that. Thank you. I think, Mayor, that's it.
Hey, Mike, I saw them, looked like they started, gathering equipment and stuff down there on the Warner, or, the Washington Dam section of the Southern Parkway. Is that true?
Yes, they've actually started moving dirt. on
Moving
Phase
dirt and
4A.
everything?
Yes.
Where at?
Clyde Company got the project, Southern Parkway Phase 4A.
Okay.
So that's from
Washington Dam Road to
Dam to
4300
Sand Hollow,
West.
right?
Yep. So they're out there pushing dirt right now. They started on Tuesday,
Wow.
moving dirt.
Well, good.
And that is a 256-day project, I believe. So
Wow.
there's some big incentives to get it done sooner.
The other section, how far are they moving on that?
What have they been? They've been on that for probably 2 months.
So we still have a little
Yeah.
ways.
And if any of you'd like to go for a ride out there, I'll be more than willing to take
It's
you
coming along. It's
on
taking
a drive
shape.
out on the parkway. And Roger in our last meeting mentioned how we went out there and
Yeah.
I think sent pictures.
I've driven out that direction. I was just kind of curious.
You're not
Sounds like-
authorized without a Washington City.
I haven't driven on the road. I've driven that
You
direction
know that
and
you
I
can take
turn
your
off
ATV
beforehand.
and ride it from your home down there.
I
It's
know.
legal to do.
I
and-
can't cross the bridge.
You can.
No, we can't.
Yes, you can. Yeah, we fixed that.
Fix that.
When?
You must have missed that night, because it's been fixed.
Yeah,
Did we change that ordinance?
Yes.
after the construction was done on 300.
That's right, we
I must
did.
have been gone.
Yeah.
We opened that one up, but it's only if you were going to do a trail.
You're headed to the trailhead, though. That's where he's going.
Road.
Look at the road. That's not a
You
trailhead.
must be going to a trail.
All right.
Road.
Well, if I had
And
an
we will
ATV,
have an
maybe.
officer follow you to make sure that you're heading
I
out of
know.
town.
I know.
Hey, one more item, Mayor, if I could. I guess that just Mike just reminded me of this is, and I know some of you have been hit up with this, and this has really kind of been at least and you may want to have some discussion with the elected body of St. George if you want to continue this, but one of the pressures we continue to get, and that is a contribution, a fairly significant contribution for Mall Drive Bridge. Our simple response has simply been, we don't have the revenues. They're not part of our capital facilities. This bridge has never been part of our capital facilities plans, so there's no impact funds there. As you heard last night, we have some fairly significant commitments with our own Class C and funds that we're going to actually run short on. And then the other problem I have is, so that leaves the council with really a discussion on whether they want to bond. And I don't know if we have a payback mechanism on the bond. And so that's my concern, because there's no revenue that gets generated off that. Now, I suggested to St. George one time that if they wanted to consider a revenue sharing agreement on that area, that maybe that might create some sort of ability for us to put some funds into that, and I've never received a response back. But that's kind of our challenge from a staff standpoint is we don't have any available funds, and if you do want a bond, we're going to have to be probably pretty creative how we come up with a funding mechanism to pay back even a bond.
The only reason why I'm interested in maybe considering that is once we get that bridge and then the Middleton Drive, Mall Drive overpass, I want to see what impact that has on our Green Springs intersection. I think that it's going to be a significant impact to start throwing some traffic down that way. Now, I don't know if it's worth us throwing money at it, but
Yeah.
to me, that's interesting.
We've already modeled that into our model for the Green Springs interchange, and that part was actually included in the presentation that came to council.
So the
those
presentation assumed
numbers-
that that was already open?
That assumes that those will come in but we're looking at, I think, 2025 numbers. And 2025 assumes that the bridge is built and that connection
And the
over
overpass
the
is built.
I-15 is built, and a couple other connections. I think it's 400 North, where you can come down Desert Drive when you come across.
Come
the
clear
industrial,
across,
and
straight
that'll go
shoots through, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was assuming that as well, but we are looking at other things that could be happening in the area, and we're gonna look at the model again. We've actually received $10,600 additional from the MPO to do a more in-depth study of that Green Spring interchange.
Have we, I know the last time we talked about that we had discussed the timing issues, how are we coming with that? Because I've just noticed that even during the weekdays now, that intersection is not working.
Disaster.
It is a nightmare.
UDOT was down here over, not
President's Day weekend?
last week. They were here the
Would've been a good time to
the week
show 'em.
prior to President's Day.
I wish
so-
they'd been here the weekend of, they would have.
Yeah, well, and they watched it on the video, on their
Did they?
cameras, but it was a group out of Salt Lake, I believe Mark, I can't remember his last name, but he is one of the main traffic engineers for UDOT up in the main complex in Salt Lake. They came down and they watched the traffic movement, they looked at all of the video on it and watched how the traffic was moving, and they did adjustments on the signals. And the little bit I've been up and been able to watch it, it actually looks like it's flowing better. One of the issues we had with the signals is they were set back in 2010, I believe, was the last time there was any adjustments done to the signals. So they've updated with the increased traffic, but they actually never had a program set for weekdays and weekend traffic. So they've now custom built a timing for that intersections in that Green Springs area to try to move the traffic more. They're also going to keep monitoring it and to see if they need to make any other adjustments to it. And they also looked at other lights. They actually looked at 300 East and Main Street, 700 West, the St. George signals on 3050 and down by Desert Industries. So we are looking at that, and then I did get an email today because we had talked about the synchronization of the signals. I actually received an email today that UDOT is still in the process of trying to get a contractor that is an approved contractor to do all of that type of work within the state. So we have one contractor doing all the synchronization work, but we're still looking probably into the summer before they actually hire or award a contract for that kind of work.
Are you able to get rid of all pedestrian access? I've just looked at that as I drive through. If you got rid of all the sidewalks and all the landscaping and just turn it into a big, you could probably add another lane or two on each side.
That's a really good point. Pedestrian crossings is probably one of the biggest delays in time on traffic signals. Because on the width of the road, you have to allow X amount of time for the width of the road for pedestrians to clear the crosswalk. So you have a lot longer time once somebody presses that button to cross. It really adds a time component, an extra time component for them to clear those intersections.
Do we have to allow pedestrian access?
Well,
through
we
there?
pretty much will. Yeah, it's pretty hard to say no
That's probably,
pedestrians.
as far as pedestrian access, that's probably, you probably see more pedestrians in that intersection than you do anywhere else in the city.
Which part of the, under the interstate or just between the?
On Green
Down.
Springs.
Yeah, on Telegraph, Green
Telegraph
Springs.
and Green Springs.
Between Hart.
What about in just the, from Telegraph to Buena Vista Boulevard, just that portion that essentially goes under the interstates?
People are gonna
That's
use
a
it
tough one.
regardless, so we really
Yeah,
need
there's
to-
quite a few people actually walk from out of the Buena Vista area and come into those stores. You'll see them walking
Yeah.
all the time and riding their bikes through there quite often.
Yeah, I don't know that we could not allow it.
Could we get UDOT to build this?
I know
Skywalk.
when we did the design, we made sure that it was only on one side of Green Springs, so they're not both sides of pedestrian access.
It's on the east side, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mike, can I ask a question? You were Councilman Turek. Has the MPO committed any money to the Mall Drive Bridge?
Several times.
Okay. See, because to me, that makes more sense. Because there is some regional benefits, and not all benefits, actually we all benefit when roads are connected, whether they're in our jurisdiction or not. For instance, much of the traffic that'll pick up Washington Fields out to the Southern Parkway will be to the St. George Airport, obviously, and so to their facilities. And so I think that the whole concept of we kind of build structures that help other cities has just always been a common understanding. And but to me, it just seemed like that certainly makes more sense. Because certainly there's some benefit to us. It's just really the question that we're posed with is money. and how much that goes outside of our community, even though there is some benefits. And I'm not neglecting that there is some benefits, but how much that goes outside of our community, especially with the challenges I think we saw last night.
Yeah, the
who's
issue-
asking- I'm sorry, go ahead.
The issue with the MPO is annually, we only get $1.8 million to earmark towards projects. So the MPO can't really fund any real projects. It's basically seed money that now you've got some funding there. Now you can go to federal highways and try to get funding from federal highways, which you can go a lot further where you have seed money already allocated and participating cost in it. And Mall Drive Bridge, I think there's twice we've allocated funds toward it, but they had no other funding to fund the bridge.
To go with it, yeah.
So how
So-
much is St. George asking? Do we have a feel for what they think's
They've
like
asked me
Washington
for about $2 million.
out of the 13 or whatever it's gonna cost to do
I
it?
think it's around 25 million.
25
It's
million.
gone up since their
It's,
original allocation.
it's probably the worst area you could put a bridge on the Virgin River.
I'll tell you one of the heartburns that I have with it is because I sat through a boundary commission hearing when we were disputing some properties down there, and St. George got up and said, the reason we're building this bridge is to serve these properties that we're disputing. And so when they won, I said, fine, build your bridge.
Well, and they also
You got up
said,
and told us you were building it to serve those properties, now don't come asking me for your money, because you got up and used that against me.
So
and
are they-
they also said in that meeting that we are funding at no participation from
That's correct,
Washington
yeah,
City.
correct.
so
Yeah, that was at the boundary commission hearing.
is it the mayor that they're asking to do this? I've had citizens ask me when it's going to be built, but I haven't had any other elected officials from other cities.
We've had several. The mayor, of course, has been hit up on a number of occasions. Mike is actually going to be in a meeting with UDOT. UDOT's coming down to see if they can squeeze anything out of the turnip tomorrow. But again, our position has just been, from a staff position, this is kind of the realities of the finances, because there is no dedicated revenue source for this, or not revenue source. There's no dedicated funding source. These are not capital facility items. We typically don't do that. So there's no impact fee. We barely can take care of our own roads, and really not even quite do that with the Class C. And so the fact of the matter is the council really will have to be pushed into a position of either a tax increase or a bond, and then payback is going to be a real challenge for us.
And we have never had a formal request. I've asked for a formal request, would you put it in writing, then I can take it to council, and we have not had any formal request.
They keep
Well,
threatening
I
to
love
do one, but
I
they
mean, really,
haven't.
the function of the MPO is exactly what Roger and yourself has talked about. That's what those roads, that's why the MPO was formed.
Well,
And what we do, I mean, obviously, we don't have monies to go out and to do those projects, but
a great example is, yes, our citizens will use that quite a bit. But a great example is, we have the Green Springs intersection that we're looking $6 million to fix that intersection. And that's a big chunk of St. George traffic that we are having to deal with. And that's what you do. It's within our city, we have to deal with that.
correct. That's, like I said, that's the function of the MPO. That's why we organized it. That's-
Let me go on the record again as saying this, and I promise not to say it again for another 6 months, but at least it's in a minute somewhere, and that is, my suggestion is still the fact that the boundary ought to be adjusted to go to the Black Ridge over there, because that's where it's where it was originally intended to go. That's where all the annexation projections were for years and years ago, was to go right. It makes the most sense. I mean, there's a reason that everybody from St. George goes to Pineview High over there, that everybody from over there attends Washington City youth activities and other activities. I mean, it really just ought to go there. And right now, it's not like we're taking it. It's not like we would acquire the only commercial area now, because the mall is, it's as inactive as it's ever been. It'd be a great time to do it. We could we'll put in the bridge. I think it's a good.
I'm so
It
disappointed
has
we
always
didn't have
made.
CEC.
It has always made sense that it should have gone there.
Go ahead and float that tomorrow as well.
I will do that.
Well, certainly, I mean, if they're willing to revenue share, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't, other than that, I'm not too interested in footing the bill.
The reason I suggested also the revenue share is I think that first of all, there's a recognition that we have to tie some sort of a fund to being able to pay these monies to them. And second of all, I am interested to see if they would even consider something like that. I would suggest that probably the answer is absolutely not.
What I would say, Roger, and the staff and mayor and everybody else is, I don't think we need to pay for it unless they want to get more serious in their request, and.
Sure.
and
Let's
until
let's
then,
formalize it in the
Until then, let's
meantime.
stop worrying about it
Yeah.
and move on with their other business.
And the reason I bring it up is just, we just kind of continue to get hit up, and I do appreciate Mike kind of pressuring them, well, if you want something formal, you need to, but, you know, I think that right now they felt very comfortable trying to informally kind of push us a little bit, and that's good.
Okay.
That's all, Mayor.
Any other comments, questions on that? We'll move to item 7, adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
There's a motion and a second.
Torrey, aye.
Seg Miller, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Staley, aye.
Truman, aye.
Thank you all for coming.